It's an impressive structure, this bulk storage dome at the Port of Georgetown, holding more than 20,000 metric tons of dry cement. But just a few hundred yards away, other warehouses at the port are lifeless, overgrown with weeds. Longtime tugboat captain Chris Johnson remembers the days when the port attracted more than 100 ships a year. Now it gets maybe 3 or 4.
We got tug and barge work coming in here kind of regularly, but the shipping is little to none.
The problem is a channel that's so shallow from silt buildup that most large container ships can no longer navigate it. Johnson says he's had to take on a second job to survive financially because without dredging, the Georgetown port, he says, cannot compete with other nearby ports in Wilmington and Charleston.
I mean, it's ridiculous. You got a port up north that's booming and one south's booming. But we're right here in the middle sandwich between the two with no water.
Georgetown County leaders have long complained that the heavily silted port is caught in a catch-22. To qualify to get federal money for dredging, the government has said at least 1 million tons of freight needed to go through the port each year. But the port can't attract nearly that tonnage until the channel gets dredged. After years of struggles to secure funding, things changed late last year when Congress passed the Water Resource Reform and Development Act. The bill opened up a pool of money for work on ports around the country that ship less than 1 million tons of freight per year.
And it allocated funding that Georgetown is now available for, that in the past Georgetown was not allocated.
Port Task Force Chairman Tim Tilley says dredging the port to a depth of 27 feet would cost $33.5 million. With a new water bill in place, he says the federal government can allocate about $15 million towards dredging. The state has pledged about $18 million, and with passage of the local option sales tax, Georgetown County will now pitch in around $6 million. Lieutenant Governor Yancey McGill, who as a state senator helped obtain state funding, says the pieces are falling in place for dredging to get underway.
All the permits have been acquired. All we need is for the Army Corps in Washington to give us the final green light. And what we intend to do within a year to a year and a half, we should see the dredging program started.
But does that mean that dredging is a good investment? A Coastal Carolina University economist completed an economic impact study on dredging the port in 2010. That study showed that an annual increase of 500,000 tons of freight through the port would have a $30 million positive impact on the Georgetown economy each year. Tilley says a port running at full capacity would create about 250 direct and indirect jobs. Though the study is now 4 years old, Tilley says its conclusions are still valid and show dredging is still the right thing to do.
I think that return on investment is incredibly solid and incredibly sound. It's an extremely wise investment.
Well, what's the assurance that if the harbor is dredged, it won't just silt up again in a few years? Tilley says there's no question the government has neglected Georgetown in the past, but will have a clear responsibility for upkeep in the future.
I think that we expect the federal government, when they return that harbor to its original draft throughout, that they will maintain it.
Today, dry cement is one of the few successes for the port, along with petroleum coke and steel billets. But the ArcelorMittal steel plant within sight of the port doesn't use it at all. The tugboat captain who's been plying these waters for more than 30 years says it means dredging the channel is a no-brainer.
More business, bigger ships could come in, be better for everybody. The whole economy, put people back to work.
In Georgetown, Joel Allen, WPDE News Channel 15.